Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to Thomas Tech Time YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about how to repair a scratch in a bumper, plastic bumper cover, whether it's the front or the rear bumper. Thomas Tech Time, it's a channel all about trying to give you the best tips, tricks, techniques, and tools, know-how, and hopefully skills to create the best fix-up, repair, auto body, stylish, whatever you're trying to accomplish. Today we're going to be working on fixing a scratch, little dent in a plastic rear bumper for a 2009 Toyota Matrix. So what I'm using is a Bondo bumper repair material, and it comes with both a hardener and the actual material itself. So what you do is you mix the two together and make sure they're really thoroughly mixed good, otherwise it's not going to dry, it's just going to become really tacky and sticky and it'll end up sanding off. So I use this little tool here to mix it. You can use any plastic thing to mix it, mixing it on some parchment paper so it doesn't bleed into the cardboard. And now that I got that mixed in really good, I'm going to use something that a lot of people are familiar with called a razor blade. This is nice because it lets you get some really small areas. The trick is not to put too much on the razor blade and to get it as close to just enough to fill the spot, the dent, the scratch that you need, because that way you don't have to worry about sanding more or putting more work into sanding than you normally would have to. So what I'm going to do is try to spread this as evenly as possible in a very smooth, thin layer with the razor blade. That thin layer is going to make sanding real easy, going to make it easy to blend into the surrounding, and there you have it. So yeah, very thin layer. I'm just going to give it just a little more just to make sure it's filled in, and looks like everything's filled in nicely. So I'm going to give that about a half hour to 45 minutes to dry, and then we're going to sand it first with 180 grit sandpaper, and then 320 grit sandpaper, and then 800 grit sandpaper to sand out any of the fine scratches left over from the previous two grit sandpapers. So you want to clean up your tools, in this case the razor blade and my little plastic working on an iPhone tool stir stick, which really isn't going to be too good for working on iPhones anymore, because we may need to use this again at some point. So take a pause there, and you guys go watch your favorite football team, and I'm going to clean this stuff up. And if I can, Saturday afternoon, maybe I can get a hold of my favorite girl, which is going to be a long shot, but who knows, we might get lucky. I mean, lucky in the sense that she'll go out with me, not lucky in the sense that, well, maybe lucky in that sense too. Anyways, we'll get back to you as soon as that dries. Hey guys, welcome back to the bumper repair video. So the Bondo bumper putty has been curing and setting for about an hour and a half now, and let's check it out and see if it's ready in the sand. Okay, it's got a nice smooth feel, there's no tackiness, there's no stickiness. I can run my finger across it and don't feel any of those things. If you do run your finger across it and it feels a little bit sticky, not smooth, you probably want to wait, give it a little bit more chance to dry. Because if you sand it before it's completely ready to go, it's not going to sand off like a fine powder. It's going to sand off in little pellets, and it's going to cause divots and grooves and a really uneven surface. So it's really important to wait until your finger runs across it and it's as smooth as a baby's, well, you know where I'm going with this. Not that I know how smooth that is, but I would imagine it's going to be pretty smooth. So anyways, I've got a sanding block with 180 grit sandpaper. I'm going to follow that up with 320 grit, follow that up with 800 grit. And the reason is we want to sand out the scratches so that when we do primer and base coat, it's going to have a nice smooth finish. So let's get started with the 180 grit. I don't use a lot of pressure. I like to see the powder coming down below this when I see the powder coming off. I know I'm using the right pressure. If I don't use enough pressure, it's not going to get smooth and it'll take a long time. If I use too much pressure, it's going to sand out the Bondo putty. So again, you want to kind of go with a light, even feel to it. Watch the edges, and I check it, you know, maybe every 10-15 seconds to see if the edges are smooth yet, because once you feel it and you don't feel any kind of edge right there, and it fits nice and flush with the rest of the bumper, then you know you got it. And then we'll do a little test afterwards, after I think it's ready to go. I'm going to spray it with primer. You can also spray it with what's called the guide coat, and I'll show you both products. And those will let you know if it's done and it's, you know, flush and fitting in really smooth with the rest of the bumper. So I can feel down here and it's just totally smooth, fitting right in with the bumper. There's a little bit of an edge here, there's a little bit of an edge, so we're going to keep sanding that down. I also like to sand at sort of an X angle. That seems to do a good job at feathering the edges too, so they run nicely into the rest of the bumper. I like using a sanding block. It gives me really good leverage. Allows me to apply just the right amount of force. Okay, that feel is really smooth, fitting with the bumper really nicely with the rest of the bumper. Yep, it's all feeling really good. Not too much left to go. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but there's these fine dust particles falling off as I sand. That way I know it's working. This is feeling really nice now, really smooth. This is just, you couldn't even tell there was any work done here. This is just meshing so nicely with the rest of the bumper. I think that's about it. Okay, now we'll go over it with some 320. This is just kind of smoothing it out even more, letting it blend in with the rest of the bumper really nicely. And you can see I'm going at kind of a cross hatch angle, sort of an X angle. Oh, that feels really nice and smooth. Now I'll follow up with a little 800 grit sandpaper. That'll just sand out any of the fine scratches from the sandpaper that we used the 180 grit. Okay, it feels really good. Now I'm going to get the before I get even the primer and the base coat, to kind of do a test spray to see if it's blending into the bumper nicely. I'm going to get a tack cloth, picking up any of the particles from sanding that are left. So that's nice and clean before we spray it with the primer or the guide coat. Okay, here's the guide coat that I like using. This is one way to tell if it's going to fit flushly in with the bumper. Also, I use this Duplicolor automotive primer. I like this because it's got filler, which the guide coat doesn't have, so it'll fill in any little really minor places that might otherwise show. So we're going to go ahead, because this was a pretty smooth looking job, I think it's going to be fine. I'm just going to go straight to the primer. And again, remember, this is to test it out, to make sure that it looks good. You don't want to use the Bondo putty and then go direct to the base coat, spray the whole bumper with $50, $60, whatever worth of base coat paint, and then find out that it doesn't look good and needs more sanding. So this is going to tell us if we need more sanding. Okay, that looks really good, and that blended in nicely. So I'm just going to let that dry for about 10-15 minutes. Have a look at the area now where the primer has had a chance to dry, and it looks nice and smooth. We don't have any of the bumper putty showing, the primer showing. It all blends in really nicely, really smoothly with the rest of the bumper. So I think we've achieved what we wanted to.